Welcome to Good Drills. Glad everyone could hop on tonight. We're just going to talk about how to get you guys not to be scrubs.
Good drills work.
If you work.
I'm happy to have Josh on here. He's one of the first people actually we had on our calls last year, and I believe it was a top, 6 or 7 call? It was top six or no. It was one of my favorite guests. Josh, I actually talked to him quite a bit. We have conversations. I've known him for a while. And in the industry as a whole, he's one of my favorite people. He's overseen the development of players both from a strength regard and a skill aspect, which is what we do here. So I couldn't have thought we were trying to get this back going with guests. And he's the first person I reached out to, about 24 hours ago?
Yeah, 24 hours.
Yeah. And here he is. That's the kind of guy he is. So with that, Ross.
Top 6 or 7 call?
No, it was top 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That puts it in a different echelon.
I'm glad I've made top 100. Let's go.
Yeah. So me and Bobby decided that we're going to start the calls that we decided in the future from now that we're going to start the calls with a little excerpt from the gym, a takeaway from the gym. So quick question, Josh. So how do you handle Hooper's coming in, not a good night's sleep, they're tired, they don't seem focused? Where does your brain go, and where should other people's brains go when they have it on the schedule, they're trying to be disciplined, they're going in for their work, but they're freaking tired, they're freaking tired, they're not there today. Is it a push through, or is it a pivot? When do you push through? When do you pivot? When do you do something else?
So, yeah, that's a great question. On those days, I'm not looking to push through maybe physically, but I am trying to have them push through mentally. And so, in those moments, how well can they focus on their intentions of what they want, of what you're asking them to do? How well can they follow instructions? How well can they start picking up on small details, or just working on picking up small discoveries for that workout? Because yeah, they're not optimized. They feel like crap. They might not be able to do things physically they normally can, but your mind still works. Like, you still can put that effort of thought and cognitive work into the workout. And so for me, yeah, it's a little bit of a pivot. I might not do some of the more physical stuff. For a high level player, I don't want to risk injury or something like that. But I definitely demand a lot cognitively for them and their thought process toward the game. Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah,
Who's
well, we got a
there's not
Roe
muted?
Cordell. Roe Cordell. Now, Josh, one of the biggest the last time we had you on, one of the biggest takeaways that we had, we made a short out of it, with the thing that people loved, is the framework that you gave around and I'm pretty sure the framework was called um what is your scouting report? What is your scouting report? What is your own scouting
Yeah.
report? And that's something that people really like. Can we just rephrase what that is for everybody that's new here, just because it hit for a lot of people?
Yeah, for me, like, whenever you want to, people, players always come in, they always like, what should I work on, coach? Like, what do you think I need to do this off season? And the way I like to frame it is, I want you to think back to your hardest games for that past season where you just feel like nothing was working or you got totally shut down. And then really critically think about what made that game so hard for you. Was there a lot of physical, were they pressing you? Was there a lot of pressure? Contested shots, all types of things. And what is the scouting report on you? And from there, you can kind of work backwards as to what you maybe need to spend more time in the gym, right? So for me, it's understanding like what you really struggle against, and then knowing your weaknesses. Like, if you had to write up a report and give it to the other team with all the secrets of your game, what would it be?
Yeah. And it's like, for Bobby, it's like pretty easy, because it's like shooting, passing, dribbling, defending.
Those are the things I excel at.
Those are the things that are on your scouting report, that it's like, let him just do what he wants, treat him like a 3-year-old. And so it's easy for you. You go in the gym, you pretty much walk in the gym and get better.
So Josh, you spent Segue.
Go ahead, segue.
Segue. We were talking prior to this about where your focus has been in terms of what your focus is on working with athletes right now, right? I know you're on the court, you're doing that, but you've been really digging into the mental aspect. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're finding, and what just you're thinking about that is?
Yeah, so everyone on this call right now, I bet you know somebody who is, amazing at workouts, can do everything that you can't do, but the second they go play pickup or the second they step on the court, they suck. And there's the other kids who at workouts where you're like, they're not that skilled. But then as soon as you guys start playing 5-on-5, they're just a straight up dog. And you're like, where is this coming from? And for me, it's kind of this like psychological component of how mentally resilient are you? And that's going to really dictate like how well you guys perform on the court, right? So just thinking about different things on the court where to create pressure. So a lot of players have been working with um, giving them only like a few attempts to complete an exercise. One thing we've been doing at the end of workouts is drawing up game scenarios. They get one shot at doing it, make or miss. If they miss, that's the end of the workout. They can't shoot a layup. They can't shoot a free throw. That's just the end of the workout. Just a lot of games to work the mental component of basketball. I feel like has been my main focus. Just because I've seen a lot of players that body language after they mess up, they're so used to being successful. A lot of top players are so used to being successful that when they start experiencing failure, they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to cope with it, right? And so our goal as well as good drill is always trying to find the limit of our players and trying to expose them to as many new things so that when you get on the court and there's chaos, you don't freak out. Like you've been in chaotic situations and you know how to problem solve and you know how to start thinking critically and just figure it out, right? Just figure it out. You're not there like, oh, coach, what should I do? You're not like, oh, Bobby, after this game, like they were doubling me, I didn't know what to do. Like the whole point of us training you is to create all of you to be independent problem solvers, to be adaptable to whatever circumstances that come, and for you guys to critically think about yourselves. Okay, uh, practice went bad, or this game went bad. Why? Like instead of getting on your phone after the workout, spend 5 minutes in the locker room just thinking through the game. What happened? Start processing it. And then if you have a bad practice, instead of like spend some time in the car ride, I encourage all my kids to have like a notebook to take notes as to like what went well, what didn't go well. And then if stuff didn't go well, what are you going to try next workout? So if you couldn't create space from a defender, well, why? What was it? What was it? Because he didn't believe you're going to shoot because you never drove on him. Your crossover doesn't look like anything like your drive. All those things like I want my players to critically think about. So these are kind of like little tidbits of the mental component, and I'm sure we can dive into any of those categories. Sorry, that was a vomit.
No, it's good. I just was working on a YouTube video today, and a framework that I came up with on the YouTube video is about like really thinking about the concept of simple training. When people say keep it simple because the game is simple. And something that I was telling Gabe, I'm like, "Oh, Gabe, I have a really cool idea. Listen to this." And he acted really impressed and surprised to boost my ego. But the thing is, like, you watch people are like, "Oh, the game is so simple. You should train simple." No, no, no. The game isn't that simple. There are when you're watching the game, you're watching TV of the 0.0000001% players that make the game look simple. They're able to absorb, like you're saying, chaos. They can absorb all the chaos because inside they can handle it. There's chaos happening. It's not outside, it's inside. They're so good that they could take all of it. They could take and they make it look unchaotic. They make it look simple. They make it look clean. You see a third grade team play that is your average third grade team. It's going to look chaotic. It's going to look like a scramble. It'll look crazy. They're not good enough. So it's like, so how capable are you to handle more in your training, and then you make the game look easy. You could handle everything and you make things look effortless. Yeah. What's your take on a lot of people? They constantly say like, oh, the game is so simple. Train just all of your training should be simple. It's not that some of your training can't be simple, but I feel when people say make your training simple, that cue of a saying, because it's all how do people behave based on what you say. I think the behavior from people when they hear that is they are like they hear easy, make my training easy, make my training comfortable, make my training something that I see on the court, and they honestly lack, I think, a lot of times the truth of what's actually happening in a game. They see what they want to see, and they don't see actually what is making these players good. Why are they doing what they're doing? How are they doing what they're doing?
Well, let's take this back. And what makes Tom Brady and LeBron James when they're, near their 40s or over 40, like why can they still perform at the same way? Like you talk about simplicity. Is it their actions are simple? It's like no, it's that Tom Brady understands the game so well that if he sees any type of movement or flinch or even a slight angle off, he can tell that a blitz is coming. Like he's able to perceive things faster. LeBron James, they did a study on LeBron. He's I think he moves the least distance compared to like any other NBA player. And you're like, you don't think about that about LeBron, but LeBron understands where people are on the court, timing, all these things, and he chooses his moments, right? And so when we talk about simplicity, it's just that they're so good that it buys them more time to anticipate, make reads, and it just looks simple, but actually it's really, really complicated. And you can say that about any sport. You watch Roger Federer, you watch any of these greats in any sports, it just looks effortless. It looks smooth. Anybody who doesn't know a squiddly about that sport can tell when someone is much more elite. And back to what you were saying with simple is what is simple? Like is through the legs more simple than double through the legs? Or what's the line of through the leg crossover? Is that become like not simple? So it's I like when people say that, like first that doesn't mean anything to me. Like for us, we're trying to create um, we are trying to push our players to the limit. We want you to find your edge. And that doesn't mean like, okay, so let's take this. The falling drill that Bobby has you do, where you guys stand on a line and you guys try to fall forward to get a very steep shin angle, correct? To mimic sprint angles and whatnot, right? It's like finding the edge of how low you can get, like falling onto your face, right? Like in every type of drill that we're trying to create, you personally, as an individual athlete, need to just continue to push and ride and find that edge of your limit. Like that's the only way you're going to progress forward. It's not about simplicity or not simplicity, but for us, like I'm always trying to create failure with my athletes, at least like a pretty high rate of failure, because if everything was easy or simple, there'd be no focus. Like everything is the same, right? I'm trying to create novelty. I'm trying to create interest. I'm trying to create flow in my players, and that comes from the struggle, right? I think too many players are obsessed with trying to find the optimal technique, or they're trying to find like the new move or add this, but it's actually the process. It's you messing up, failing, falling over, dribbling the ball so hard that it pops off your wrist. When you start to do that, those types of things, and you start pushing to the edge, when you actually start playing the game, it's slow. It becomes slow, and everything becomes easy and simple because you've been living in the edge for so long. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm going to bring back Ross talking about the scouting report on me, and I stink at dribbling, right? I can't shoot, I can't move, I'm bad at everything, right? Very far removed from Tom Brady and LeBron James. So for somebody like that, that is at the complete opposite end of the continuum, that struggles with everything, how do you begin this process, or how would you begin this process with somebody coming in that isn't good at shooting, that can't pass, right? Not very athletic, can't jump high. How do you start?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, everybody has to be able to do those skills, right? So I begin to every player needs to be able to pass, shoot, dribble, do those actions that you were talking about, right? So I don't care if you're position five or you're position one. I pretty much treat my players pretty similar in terms of skill. Obviously, when we get more into the nuances of your own offense, like we might put you in certain positions of the court that you are more often, but everyone's a basketball player. Everyone needs to be able to do those skills, right? So um I tend to look at it like, is it a physical limitation? Like, are they slow? Okay. Or are they just like actually physically slower than all the players? Or are they really fast, but they can't bring the ball with them, right? That's a different issue, right? So first, always like you always have to address the limitations. So what's going to give us the biggest ROI, return on investment on this type of player, right? So for me, it's just it's putting them in those small-sided games. It's putting them in those positions where they start developing a comfort and all those levels and training the whole game. Like we're not going to just train just passing, just dribbling, just shooting. Like it's always the entire game, because when you play basketball, it's the entire game. You're not like, oh, like I just got in a shooting workout where I just did 300 jumpers, right? Like you got to play the whole game. So I always try to emphasize playing the whole game every single skill session and incorporating all things like finishing, dribbling. There's no workout where we don't work on all those aspects, even defense.
So you don't hyper focus on one area. You try to address pretty much as many as you can.
Yeah, I would say so, unless it's very niche. Like if it's like a player who's 34 and they're only playing 3 more years in their career and they really want to focus on a single skill set that they're getting paid millions of dollars to do. Even then, I would still do very general stuff. But in that case, we might be slightly more focused, but I wouldn't say we'd still just hyper focus and only do one skill.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The majority, even when you're working one on one with a player, the majority of the work you're doing, it has a live feel to it, right? Most of it,
Yeah, I would say 80,
eighty
80%,
percent.
80% of it. I would say maybe just the warm up
Yep.
portion of it, when I'm just letting them I call it like jazz warm ups. Like I want them to just be free flowing, explore, skip, glide, go through, do whatever. Like hezzy, like I want to see when you step in the gym at 6 a.m. what type of creativity juices that you got flowing in your brain, and how you're moving and just loosening up. And I don't want to see that through behind, through behind, through behind, through the behind, in and out, cross, spin, which is typically what you see, right? Like I want to see how loose you can get, and it's just like we're warming up into the workout. So that's probably the only time, we'll do stuff where it isn't live, or there isn't too much defense. And if a player's maybe like injured or something like that, or has some physical limitations, maybe then we won't do too much.
What would you say to a high school player, young player that doesn't have access to a trainer like yourself, that doesn't have maybe a friend group or competitive players that want to go and train with them, that the bulk of their training time is going to be by themselves alone in the gym?
I would download the Good Drill app.
No, no.
Oh,
give
okay.
up.
Like,
Yes,
oh,
yeah,
that's like a pain.
yes. What I'm
Okay.
saying, what would you do?
Okay. What would I do? I would try to let's just say something like you're by yourself. Like instead of, if you're by yourself and you're doing moves, which is like that's fine. If you want to work on if you saw some Kyrie move that you want to work on, and that you want to copy, cool, do it. What I would ask you to do is see how many different ways you can try to copy or mimic or change it up and put your own flavor, right? Like if you're gonna go, if you really want to work through the legs into your shot, or just through the legs, say your dad's like, let's keep it simple. Um, how many ways can you go through the legs? Can you go through the legs like directly where you pound the ball, where it goes exactly horizontally? What happens if a really long defender is guarding you and he's reaching? Can you go through the legs where it kind of goes diagonally backwards and then sprint forward? How hard can you go? Can you go slow, like a delayed through, quick, or can you go pound really hard? How many different ways can you change your tempo? If you're working on floaters, how many different ways can you finish your floaters? There's a concept. Well, there's a concept called degeneracy, and it's from motor learning, but it basically means like how many ways can you accomplish the same task? Like if you watch Kyrie can accomplish the same task a million different ways. If you watch Steph Curry's warm up, he doesn't just shoot one angle. Everyone tells you like, oh, you gotta have to have an optimal shooting form. Your shooting form's blah, 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 looks like that. Then why is the best shooter in the world shoot high arc shots at the beginning? Why does he shoot off his right foot, off his left foot, going left, right, left, backwards, one hand, hook shots, shooting over the backboard, right? Real true mastery is being able to do a single thing in a million different ways, right? Because who remembers, oh, you guys are too young, but there was one game where Kobe, I think, dislocated his was either his shoulder or his hand, his main shooting hand. And he ended up playing the rest of the game shooting with his left hand. Like that isn't by accident. That's because he probably trained that at some point or was exploring that point or worked both hands, right? It wasn't like, oh no, I've done 10,000 reps on this side. I don't have it anymore. What am I gonna do? It's like, right? So in our own workouts, we just try to explore as much variability as we can, and that can be through speed, angles, uh, different directions, whatever you want. You gotta just. I would encourage you guys to be as creative as possible, and then reflective as to each workout. Just focus on making one or two small discoveries. Oh, I noticed when I do this, like I need to maybe put my foot a little bit wider out. Oh, I noticed every time I do this, I lose the ball, right? So what small discoveries can you make every single workout would be of like great value. That would be how I would work out alone. Oh, sorry, can I say one more thing? Visualizing. So visualizing like a defender's coming up, creating scenarios where I call it hot potato, where literally like you throw it to yourself, you catch it, and you just like it's 0.6 seconds left on the shot clock, and you just got to fire it off. Or imagining you go off a pick and roll, and the big switches on you, and now the big is one-on-one with you, and you're trying to get off a shot, and you see him in front of you, right? There's a lot of power in visualizing certain things. Like you come off a pick and roll, maybe pause, see where the big is, see your teammate in the corner, like see those things, and then try to play out of that. That is worth a lot compared if you're going to be training alone, is spending some time visualizing and imagining things, right? Let your mind do it. And same thing, like when you're riding to the gym, when Jacob was at the gym walking home, like just seeing things, seeing that big guy who just blocked the crap out of you last week, like where was he on the court? And just imagining that he's coming, and you're like, floater, see you later. That type of stuff, right? So I think there's a lot of power in visualization as well.
I think that a lot of people, and I feel like that's like a thing with like, oh, what do I do if I don't have anybody? I feel like that's a thing of like people know the answer to it. I think that people train in a way where it's like how are they initially introduced to the game? Like you were watching, you love the NBA, it inspired you. Boom, I'm gonna try to mimic, like you're saying. I For me, it was I didn't nothing with basketball. I didn't know anything about basketball. My dad brought me to a trainer that he's like, oh, our family friends went to him. Let's go. For me, it was environment. It was somebody else that was telling me what to do. I had the trainer. I had somebody. Like I think everybody has something, some like environment, the identity, the where's your attention, where like what is your situation, and I think you could figure it out in so many ways. I don't think there's like one way to do anything. I think you could do everything by yourself if you can accumulate enough focus. I think you can make it with in an environment. You could find an environment. I think a big problem is for our world. I don't think it's for their world. I don't think they even understand the language. They just do things. But I think for our world, like people pigeonholing and saying, no, you have to do it this way. Like the best players do it this way. No, you have to, like, dude, I think there's plenty of cases for every NBA player probably where it's probably like a third of them were in a freaking environment that everybody was better around them. A third of them were probably their dad was in the NBA. A third of them probably just loved watching the game growing up, and they're just like trying things by themselves. So there's so many different ways that's talking about that yesterday. It's like, or 2 days ago. It is not one way to strength train. There's not one way to train. It's like how much focus can you put into something, and what are the things that you can do, the methods, the principles, the thinking to get the focus right. That's what I got.
Yeah. I'm thinking like your experience and you went in and got the trim. I don't think you, Ross, struggled with confidence as much as I did because I put in and when I was in high school, like that was my thing. Like I had little to no self-belief and I struggled in the game in the high school setting. I was better in AAU where people didn't know me, but the second I got into that setting, I crumbled. So my answer was always more shots, more reps, more time by myself, maybe with my dad rebounding, and I would work 5 hours straight. I would go as long as you would let me work out by myself, I would do it because in my mind that was the thing that was going to get me there. The problem, it didn't address the root cause, right? And the only thing that would have addressed my cause was getting thrown into that freaking environment, right? I had to go into the fire. And I think that's where it's like it's so dependent on who you are and your makeup and your mentality and your self-belief and how you view yourself. And I think somebody that's very confident can go put in a ton of work by themselves and will probably have great transfer, right, of those abilities to the competitive environment. Somebody like myself who was shy, bashful, scared to talk, scared to step into any type of leadership role, questioning his thoughts, questioning what people thought about him. I could have spent 9 billion hours by myself alone in the gym, and it was never going to get me to where I needed to be.
But you know what the funny thing is though too? You played Division 3 basketball and pro. And so it's like I think that it gets you to a point, and I think you can will yourself with hard work to get somewhere. But then it's like, what do the 0.0001%, like you're 1%, you're 1 to 2% with like Division 3 basketball, like that type of lineup. Now, how would you get to that next thing? And I think people work really hard, and then it's like, all right, there's physical work, but then there's like, do you have the will to actually go into discomfort, true focus, true like you're saying, something different. Give me something different, a different way to go through the legs, not something you're comfortable with, something new that you wouldn't have already thought of, and you're just moving into it, and it's truly uncomfortable. People that come to our gym all the time, they could handle any physical work, and they pretend that it's hard work. It's not. You call it hard work, but it's not like it's not truly discomfort. They gotta go into the Dunkin' Donuts, ask for a free coffee, take your shirt off in public. I want to see that. I told somebody to do that the other week, Josh Fan. Maybe
Did they do it?
we're gonna find out
maybe he's here
today.
today.
His
Well,
name
yeah.
is Grant.
Yeah.
We're gonna find
Grant,
out.
are you
I don't know
here?
if he's here.
No, Grant canceled his subscription
Yeah.
and never came back.
yeah,
Well,
Grant
I
trying to get me canceled.
was listening to a great TED talk where this guy was talking about how he was so tired of failure that he like wrote out 1,000 things, like as crazy as possible. Like walk up to a neighbor's house, ask them if you can plant this huge tree in their yard. And it was like walk up to 3 like elderly women and ask them out, like just like random crazy stuff. And his whole point was he wanted to choose as many crazy things as he could that he knew that people were going to say no to. And basically, he was trying to inoculate himself to failure or rejection. And this dude was like, he was a CEO, and I think he was deathly afraid. Like he would go to the ends of the earth to like avoid someone saying no or failing at someone. So for him to go on this like journey was an amazing thing, and he was able to overcome it by just exposure, right? Right. And back to what you were saying with um there's so many ways that lead to Rome. There's so many ways to develop as a player. I think the worst thing for all of you guys listening to this call is to just stand still, like to just be okay with status quo, to be okay with what you guys are currently doing in the gym. Like even if you were to explore and do a bunch of funky, weird stuff, like or try this or try this or try that's what I want you guys to get to. Like our society, all of you guys are in school, all of you guys are trying to get good grades. Like we're taught to like be afraid of failure, like adverse to failure. I actually want you guys to be addicted to. I want you guys to be addicted to failing in the training process is what I mean. Like I want you guys to be addicted to messing up, to being looking stupid in front of your friends. Like who cares? Like do you think any of these guys on the call or do actually care as much as your development as you do? Like Jacob, do you think Nick cares about how much better you get, or Aubrio or whatever? Like, do you care about Hunter? Hell no, right? Like everybody's just focused on their own individual training. So when you're in the court, like who cares about how you look, right? Like how well can you push yourself to be obsessed with that process of making mistakes and getting better? And it doesn't matter what it is. Like if you want to go out and drill certain things, like are there going to be more effective, efficient ways to getting good? Of course. But that's going to beat out all of you guys on here who want to be just dogs at experimenting and figuring out on yourself. That's going to beat out some of you who just show up to Bobby's gym and Bobby and Ross and just do whatever they tell you and without even thinking about anything. You guys just show up to the gym, they put on some drills and you're like, okay, well, he's a good drill. Like they have so many followers, like of course it's gonna work. Like all these other guys are doing it. Like who you guys yes, the training is good, and definitely you guys will
Gosh, if
get
and I got if
better.
anybody showed up to my gym acting like that, I would chew them up, spit them out, and tell them never to come back. Just let's get that clear. That never happens. It never will happen. But okay, it was good. It was good though.
All right. Well, my rift. Yeah. Okay. Coach David, did you get that rift? Were you focused? Were you focused? All right. Just checking. Yeah. So just being obsessed with that process, like, um, I was reading this book, which I would recommend all of you guys. It's like The Will to Keep Winning. And I love these books. This guy's from Japan and his name's Daigo, and he was like the best Street Fighter player of all time. But it talks about, everyone here knows about e-gaming and all that kind of stuff, like how hard it is to be like 25, 26, 27 and still be relevant in esports. But this guy just kept finding different ways to evolve his game. And the thing that stuck out to me in this book was like he never he never tried to play the meta. So the meta is like how people are winning in the game at that current moment. He always tried to self-discover and figure out the strategies for himself and figure out the nuances. And he did that because it didn't matter. It didn't matter if the meta kept changing. Like he would be always prepared, and it was always self-discovering that he would discover his own way, right? And that's something that you guys need to figure out is like, how are you guys going to be effective on the court? Like Jacob can't do what Nick does, or Hunter can't do what Coach David does, or what Jordan does. Like you guys are all your own unique players, and you guys have to figure out. You guys can't listen only to Bobby or Ross or your coach. Like you guys have to figure out actually what you're talented at, what your gifts are, and you guys need to explore that to the ends of the earth and become your own individual. Of course, you can look up to Steph, you can look up to Kyrie and these players and stuff, but you got to figure out what that looks like for you, and you got to become your own player. And that requires like a lot of effort. Like as much as Bobby and Ross push you guys physically on the court, making you guys jump from free throw lines, doing like just crazy jumping off stage platforms and dribbling from platforms, like you guys have to invest as much mental cognitive effort into your game, into thinking about your own training. Like no one else can think about your training more than you guys. And I've watched Kobe work out. I've watched Jeremy Lin work out. I've watched Tracy McGrady work out. I've watched top CBA players, and all the common threads that I've noticed them, is they're just like they're always thinking, always tinkering, always like processing these things about their own game. And if you guys want to make it to the next level, like it's got to be your own process. No one can do it for you. Like forget your AU coach, forget your mom, forget your dad, forget your trainer. Well, no, don't forget them. Okay. Yeah, you need your trainers, but like you guys gotta own your own process.